A lot of respect for the San Francisco 49ers and what they've done under general manager Trent Baalke and head coach Jim Harbaugh. This is a team that has really established himself as one of the deepest, most talented organizations in all of the National Football League. Very well run. A team that has made 3 straight NFC Championship games, came this close to winning Super Bowl 47, and frankly came this close, literally about this close, to making it back to Super Bowl 48. A tremendous job by this organization. Very rarely do Super Bowl losers come back next year and even make the playoffs, let alone make the playoffs, win 2 playoff games, including 2 playoff games on the road, mind you, and then come this close to winning a 3rd playoff game on the road. The San Francisco 49ers are damn good, and a lot of the stars seem to be aligning for them, perhaps being able to get over the hump and winning Super Bowl 49. The question ultimately is, can they get over the hump? There are some questions for this 49ers organization in this offseason heading into the 2014 season. How is Navarro Bowman going to come back from his devastating leg injury? How is Mike Iupati going to come back from his leg injury? Is Aldon Smith going to be able to keep his nose clean and keep his stupid ass out of trouble? And is he going to be worth the headache of signing to a long-term contract? Is he going to come in and clean up his act off the field and be the productive, destructive defensive force that we know that he can be? Is this organization going to get behind Colin Kaepernick long term? He's entering a contract year this season. This is a real chance for Colin Kaepernick to make himself a shitload of money. But if he doesn't take him to the Super Bowl, if they don't win the Super Bowl, are they ready to move on? Is Colin Kaepernick going to be their guy long term? You also look at the questions, too, from the front office to the head coach. The relationship between Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke apparently is shaky at best and icy at worst. So can these guys get along? Can they play nice? And is it one of these things that if the 49ers don't make it all the way and don't win the Super Bowl this year, is this going to be one of these things where this organization potentially, implodes and self-destructs? Over the past couple of drafts, people have talked about the 49ers kind of using this red shirt mentality or this red shirt philosophy and playing the draft game very well, being able to accumulate draft pick currency over the past couple of drafts that allow them to move up and down when they need to be able to accumulate picks for the next year's draft. And it set themselves up for in a very nice position of power here in 2014 in this draft. And I think they did a very good job, by and large, of doing what they needed to do in this draft. What I like about this draft for the San Francisco 49ers, more so than the previous 2 drafts, is they still got some of those high upside type of gamble picks like the Brandon Thomases and the Keith Reasers of the world. But they got a lot of guys that I think could potentially contribute early and often long term. And I think that's something that the San Francisco 49ers needed. They needed to get talented guys. They needed to get impact players, but they also needed to get talented impact players that could play right away. And in this draft, they managed to get a lot of those guys. I think when you look at the draft results down below, I think ultimately the San Francisco 49ers were the biggest winners of all in the 2014 NFL draft. In terms of their best pick, I'd probably go with Jimmie Ward, the safety out of NIU. I was surprised when he ended up being the 4th safety taken. I thought he would be the 3rd safety taken, then maybe Deone Bucannon would go early in round 2 as the 4th safety, but instead, Deone Bucannon actually went before a Jimmie Ward. What I like about Jimmie Ward is he's a guy you could put back there next to last year's first-round pick, Eric Reid, who played very, very well as a rookie, even though he has some concerns, I think, long-term in terms of his concussion history. Now you've got a nice young secondary tandem back there at safety that you could maybe measure up a little bit at least with what Seattle has in Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor with Eric Reid and Jimmie Ward. And what I like about Jimmie Ward is this is a guy that could play a good center field, and he can also come down and guard opposing tight ends and wide receivers out of the slot, which I think is something that is necessary out of today's safeties, and even maybe play some in the box too. I look at Eric Reid and Jimmie Ward, I see 2 guys that could either play free safety or strong safety, so they have a lot of versatility there in what they could do with them. In terms of good value, there were a lot of good values in this draft for the San Francisco 49ers. I look at round 3. I love each and every single one of their round 3 picks for different reasons. Marcus Martin and Chris Borland and Brandon Thomas. I love all 3 of those picks. Hell, round 4, Bruce Ellington, the wide receiver out of South Carolina. I love that pick too. But I think their best value was Carlos Hyde from Ohio State. This was a guy that I had a late first to early second round grade on. They got him at pick number 57. And you could see here with how they got to Carlos Hyde, just how much the 49ers organization gets how the draft should work. They trade back from 56 to 63. And in the process in that trade with Denver, they pick up, I believe it was a 2015 fourth-round pick. Then they move back up from 63 to 57, and where the Dolphins were, and still come out of it with that 2015 fourth-round pick, and were able to get their guy all along, Carlos Hyde, a guy that I think by 2015 will be the starting running back for the San Francisco 49ers. Frank Gore will probably be out of the picture. It'll be Carlos Hyde and maybe Marcus Lattimore as the 1-2 punch for the San Francisco 49ers. I thought that was tremendous value for getting Carlos Hyde that late in round number 2, and I thought of him as a late first to early second round pick. And furthermore, just showed the masterful way the San Francisco 49ers have really become kings of the NFL draft in terms of accumulating draft pick currency and understanding how the game is played. To be able to have the balls to trade down from here to here and then trade back up from here to here and come out of it better for it and still get the guy that you wanted, and he happened to be a big-time steal. Tremendous job by the San Francisco 49ers. Easily the best value. You basically got Carlos Hyde and a fourth-round pick next year to move down one spot. Tremendous. A guy that I think could really surprise it potentially early is Marcus Martin, the center out of USC. He was my number 1 rated center on the board. Easy for me to say. Another guy that I had a late first to early to mid second round grade on. Here's a guy that I think could play guard at the NFL level, but I think his best position is center. Or when you look at the San Francisco 49ers offensive line, perhaps their weak link, if they have one, is at the center position with Jonathan Goodwin, who I believe is all of like 35 years of age. They needed a long-term center there because physical offensive line play is a trademark of Jim Harbaugh's 49ers teams, just like they were when he was the head coach at Stanford, and Marcus Martin fits that mold. You bring him into a situation where you've got a Joe Staley and an Anthony Davis and a Mike Iupati. Now you bring a Marcus Martin in there. That's a lot of high draft picks invested on the offensive line, where high draft picks should be invested. Now you're helping out your running game. You're helping out your pass protection for Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers offense. You're accomplishing a lot of things, and you're, again, taking a guy that really fits the identity of what you want to do on the offensive side of the ball. In terms of second guessing of this draft, there's not a ton of it for the 49ers because, like I said, it was one of these things where I think they did a good job of playing the draft game. They got some guys that could come in and give them an immediate impact. They got some guys with some huge upside that were good value picks. Like I said, the guys like Reaser, the guys like Brandon Thomas, that they'll probably redshirt in 2014. But they got, most importantly of all, more guys that could contribute and make an impact right away. I do question the fact that they didn't trade up and make a big-time move up the board, maybe into the top 10 to top 15 picks to get an impact player like a Kyle Fuller or get a guy like an Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe that's the way they should have gone, but looking at some of the value they got in particular in round number 3, maybe it worked out better that they didn't. But I still question why they didn't ultimately trade up. Maybe they didn't have the trade partner. Maybe they weren't willing to give up as much as it was. Maybe they got scared off by when they saw how much Buffalo gave up just to move up 5 picks in the draft from 9 to 4. That could very well be. I do question them not getting a really, truly explosive wide receiver. I like Bruce Ellington. I think he's going to contribute as a rookie, but he's not the fastest or most explosive guy. And I think that's what they needed. Some people will say, well, they traded a 4th-round pick for Stevie Johnson. Yeah, that's true, but Stevie Johnson is more of the same type of receiver that they already have in an Anquan Boldin and a Michael Crabtree. At some point in time, you need a different type of guy, somebody that could do different things, and I'm not sure that they got that in this draft or in this offseason. I also question them waiting until round number 4 to get a corner. I thought that was a pretty big need, losing guys like Carlos Rogers and Terrell Brown this offseason. They needed more help at corner, and they waited until round 4 to address it. They addressed it several times, mind you, later on in the draft in day 3, but I was surprised they didn't invest an earlier pick on a corner. I thought a guy like a Stanley Jean-Baptiste maybe in round number 2 could have made a tremendous world of sense, or a guy like Keith McGill with one of those 3rd-round picks would have made a tremendous amount of sense as well. But ultimately, that's a lot of nitpicking of this 49ers draft because it was still really damn good. I expect Jimmie Ward, once he recovers from his broken foot, to be a day one starter. I think Carlos Hyde will get some significant carries as a rookie and will be the long-term starter for them. I envision Marcus Martin could end up being a starter for them some point in time in 2014, 2015 at the very latest. I love Borland as an inside linebacker long-term. You got Navarro Bowman coming off of a leg injury. Patrick Willis hasn't been the same player to me the past year or two, struggling through some injuries. Brandon Thomas, you sit him out of here. This is a guy that could end up being a stud at guard or maybe a long-term replacement for Joe Staley at left tackle. I love so many things that the 49ers did in this draft. Like I said, I thought they were the biggest winners of all on draft day. And if this draft didn't help the San Francisco 49ers get over the hump and make them the favorites to win Super Bowl 49 and to win a world championship, I don't know what they could do to ever change that. If this draft didn't get it done for them, I don't know what can.